Hi friends, welcome to Raaonline lecture series on neurophysiology. Today we'll see about a very important feature which differentiates human beings from animals, that is physiology of language and speech. So these are the concepts that we are going to see today. Concept of cerebral dominance, what are the areas related to the language and speech, and the pathways with which the speech signals are carried and processed in the brain, and we'll see about language disorders as well. What is the cerebral dominance? We have two hemispheres, right hemisphere and the left hemispheres. They both are not equal in their functions. Okay, certain functions are exclusively present in the left hemisphere. Certain functions are exclusively present in the right hemisphere. So which is important? Actually, the hemisphere which is involved in the language function, that is language processing, understanding the spoken words, printed words, and expressing the ideas in terms of speech or in terms of writing or drawing, all these are actually belonging to the language function. Okay, so whichever hemisphere is doing this language function is said to be the dominant hemisphere or categorical hemisphere. The word dominant is no longer used. Okay, so this dominant hemisphere is associated with the categorization and symbolization of the animals. This is the one which is actually differentiating the human beings from the animals. Okay, so you might have heard about the right-handed individuals and the left-handed individuals. So majority, almost 91% of the human beings are right-handed individuals. Okay, so for the right-handed individuals, the dominant hemisphere or the hemisphere which is involved in the language function is 96% left hemisphere. Okay, and only 4% right hemisphere. In the left-handed individuals also, 15% is right hemisphere and 15% no clear information is available for the left-handed individuals, and remaining 70% it is still the left hemisphere that is dominant. Okay, so even when the person is deaf mute, is not able to speak out or who's from birth. So even when a person is a deaf mute who is not able to communicate from birth, they use the sign language. So for those right-handed individuals who use sign language also, the dominant hemisphere will be the left hemisphere. Now we talk about the functions. One hemisphere is dominant, the other one is non-dominant. Okay, so the non-dominant hemisphere is said to be the representational hemisphere. Okay, but what is the anatomical proof for this? Okay, so they have found out that an area particularly in the superior temporal gyrus. Okay, this is actually an area related to the language processing of the auditory signals. Okay, and they found that this area is bigger in the left hemisphere for the right-handed individuals. Okay, so this area is called as planum temporale. So this is present in the Hissel sulcus. Almost the superior temporal gyrus is called as the Hissel sulcus, and this area is called as the planum temporale. This is said to be longer in hemisphere for a right-handed individual when compared to the right side, which is smaller. And also biochemically, this levels of dopamine in the left hemisphere from the nigrostriatal pathway is found to be higher in case of right-handed individuals. Okay, so all these anatomical and the biochemical correlates suggest that the left hemisphere for a right-handed individual is dominant, and that is the one which is involved in the language related functions. So we have a cerebral dominance. The dominant hemisphere is said to be the categorical hemisphere. The non-dominant hemisphere is said to be the representative hemisphere. Okay, so for a right-handed individual, left one will be the categorical hemisphere and the right one will be the representational hemisphere. So what are the functions that are specifically done by this left hemisphere? That includes language, speech and the comprehension of the language, calculation and the higher analysis of the calculation, reasoning capacity, okay, and routine sensory and motor control of the right side of the body, timing and sequencing of events, and most importantly, recognition of the words, letters, numbers, pictures. all these are done by the left hemisphere, that is the dominant hemisphere for the right-handed individuals. Whereas the representational hemisphere is involved in more artistic activity. It is involved in creativity, it is involved in spatial ability, perception with respect to the context, okay, and the sensory motor control of the left side of the body, recognition of the places and objects by its shape, size and all those things, interpreting gestures, and most importantly, music. There is an area near the sylvian fissure which is very dominant or which is very active on the right side, and those areas which are highly active, they are supposed to be the best musicians. They have interest in the music. Okay, so all these are done by the representative or non-dominant hemisphere.